Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Interview with an Inspiration. Today, we'll be interviewing Jeremy Haun, who is a comic book writer and artist. And if you've ever read The Beauty, The Realm, those are two of my favorites. The amazing artwork, amazing writing, great storytelling. So, Jeremy, thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'm really excited, and I'm very happy that you reached out, because I never, like, when it comes to the people that I pick up off the shelves, as far as creators go, like when I pick up your work and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to talk to them. A lot of times, like, I've reached out to like big name people and they just don't even, like Scott Snyder and those guys, they just don't like ever get back. Grant Morrison, I've tried to hunt him down about 1,000 times. But I just have a slew of comic book writers and artists that I love, and Beauty is one of those things that when I got back into comics after being out for so long, Beauty, the Nail Biter, those kind of things got me back in the horror stuff. Because growing up, it was always the Cape Crusader, and it was always the hero stuff. And then seeing, I guess it's an oxymoron, but beautiful horror sitting on the shelves, it was a breath of fresh air for me in my late 20s. So again, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate having you.
Oh, thanks, man. That's great. And I think that we really are in a different era with stories. I think that superheroes are always going to be there, and I think that they've got a great place. And I love superhero stories, but like so much of my heart is with horror and with various genre stuff. And I think that as I've gotten older, the stories that I like to read and I'm drawn to are more like the weird fiction stuff that you're seeing pop up from all sorts of from publishers right now.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into the meat of your creativity and the things that you've created and co-created, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a comic creator. I live in the Midwest, kind of like right in the crack of everything, in Joplin, Missouri. I've been making comics for nearly 20 years now, which is kind of a weird thing when you think about that. I think that it's an interesting industry in that you're always on the move and always trying to do the next thing. And I think that I sort of looked at a lot of what I was making, and I was always like, oh, I'm kind of the like a young guy. I'm a new guy, and then I realized, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm not a new guy anymore. I'm now pretty established in what I do. I've worked for every company from Marvel and DC, a lot of work for Image. I think I love the superheroes that you were talking about from our childhood. Obviously, Batman has always got an intense place in my heart. I love those stories. I love those characters, but I think my true love is telling my own stories. And I think that when I started out, you do that first thing and you have to do it on your own. It's a creator owned project. You have to prove yourself a little bit so that you can get in and do Batman or whatever that is, and you work so hard to do that. And for me, I got there and I loved getting to work on the Red Hood and on Detective Comics and on Batwoman and Constantine and Captain America and Iron Man. All those projects, I loved working on those things, but I realized that really what I wanted to do and what I wanted to focus on was telling my own stories. That kind of got back to genre stuff, the stuff that I've always known and loved, and that was my focus.
Yeah. Yeah, and another comic that I forgot to mention that I do really love is Red Mother as well. That was one of the ones I picked up in trade, and again, it's a great story, great art, and it's good horror. So, what are some of your influences that kind of got you into writing and to drawing, whether it be comics or regular prose?
Um, I loved comic books from an incredibly early age. My mom worked at a little like a dime store pharmacy whenever I was young, and this is in the 70s. There was a spinner rack in there, and I like um, I was sick a lot as a kid, and so she would bring me the comics. They tore off the covers for the returns,
Yeah.
and rather than throwing them away, the guy that ran it he knew she had a kid, and so he would send stacks of comic books home with her, and so I was getting the chance to read everything from the Flash to Archie to like I was obsessed. And again, I was probably maybe 5 or younger, getting like Tomb of Dracula and a lot of like the cool weird Marvel horror stuff that was being put out at the time, Werewolf by Night and Man Thing and various things like that, from DC, like getting Swamp Thing. Um, but it was an interesting juxtaposition because you got superheroes, you got Richie Rich and Archie comics and things like that, but then you got this really cool weird horror stuff, and I was just constantly reading those comics, and I think comics were always a part of my life, and I would my mom still tells stories about me sitting at this little tiny table in my bedroom redrawing with crayons what the pages were from comic books. And I would have been 5, again 4 and 5 years old, and that kind of stuck. I always drew. I always kind of made my own books. I would go in and staple pieces of paper together, and and as I got older, I gained a real appreciation for movies. We had HBO at the house, and then I had an uncle that recorded, all day, every day, like HBO and Showtime and stuff like that. So I got to see movies, on VHS, and we would watch them over and over and over again. Um, I guess the advantage of being latchkey kids, you get
Yeah.
home, you just pop in, Monster Squad for the 135th time or whatever it was. But these movies led to a real love of storytelling that kind of paired incredibly well with comics, and I just found myself wanting to do that over and over again.
Nice, nice. So I noticed on your website you have some of the Haunthology stuff in zines. So you've been making zines since you were a little kid. It sounds like.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and it's funny too because I think that like the reason I even made the Haunthology zines was I was cleaning up my library in my house. I have a studio space, and one of the rooms I just is all my comics and trades and all that stuff. But I found this box that I had been collecting for 30 years or more, and it was just packed with zines and little like sketchbooks from artists and stuff like that. And it got me to thinking about how much I loved zines and making zines and buying them. You'd take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you fold it over, and that's a book. And
Hmm.
you have if you have a cool, bright, slightly cardstocky cover on the outside, that's even cooler. And I wanted that feel, and definitely while I was working on Haunthology, I wanted something that like I could like a physical thing that I could give people, because creating these stories and putting them out digitally on my Patreon for a year is one thing, and it's great, but like um I personally like I support a ton of creators on Patreon and platforms like that, but I still want that physical thing,
Hmm.
even if it's something as simple as as a zine. And so zines are just punk rock. You kind of you love them. Like that's you kind of want like that feel for horror stuff and music stuff. So I kind of wanted to capture that.
I agree 100%. So I was introduced to you, or to your work, I guess, by Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland. and I always like to say that it's, in my opinion, the best comic shop on the East Coast, hands down. Um, so they knew that I was a horror fan, and said that I should check out this new comic called The Beauty. And I picked it up, and it's really interesting, the idea of beauty being like a sexually transmitted disease. Um, it was very interesting to me. So the fact that people wanted to get infected spoke volumes about like real life as well. So like people, everybody wants to be beautiful, and the fact that a sexually transmitted disease is, very dirty, and it's something that you avoid like the plague, right? But people, want to get the beauty. So people are willing to pay the price for beauty, and it spoke volumes about real life, and the lengths that people will go to achieve what they consider to be beautiful. It's almost like, people say, be careful what you wish for, or else you just might get it. So what inspired you to, want to tell the story?
I think body horror is always incredibly interesting and terrifying. David Cronenberg has told some of the best body horror stuff ever. I think his son Brandon has picked up that mantle and run with it. Others
Yeah, I
are doing
agree.
it really well. But like, there's really something about our own destruction because of our own vanity, right? Like we view things in very specific ways at very specific times. We cause damage to ourselves, to others. I hate the idea that we all grew up with very specific beauty standards. Oh, if you look like this, you're not attractive, or look like that, you're not attractive, or whatever it is. And I wanted to play with a little bit of that. I wanted to tell a story that was a horror science fiction story that dealt with a little bit of the complexity of how we view ourselves. I was actually in LA when like it all sort of clicked for me. I was out. I was taking meetings on another project I was working on. We were out at this really fantastic upscale outdoor mall, and we're sitting there and we're having a meal. And I'm a Midwestern guy, so like everybody around me was pretty much eating like a kale salad, and really obviously, taking care of themselves. And I'm shoveling like the biggest burger that I could order in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I look around, and I'm like, I realized that everyone around me, and then I realized that this is a broad generalization, but in the moment, it really felt like this, that
Hmm.
everyone around me was the people working in the shops, the people walking around, were waiting to sort of get noticed. Like they were waiting for their moment to say, somebody to say, hey, you're an actor, aren't you? That sort of thing. And they were beautiful people, and whether it was naturally or through some sort of exercise regimen or beauty care regimen or surgery or whatever it was, these people went to incredible lengths to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to present a certain way. And I wanted to examine that. I wanted to dive into this thing where it's like, what if it came at an extreme cost? Like, what if, because regardless, it does come at an extreme cost. The way we treat ourselves, the way we view ourselves, the way we shame ourselves for being exactly who we are. There is a cost, but I wanted a very specific physical cost. What if in order to be beautiful for an indeterminate amount of time, you had to get sick? Like you had to give yourself a a disease, a virus. And I mean, even current climate aside, with the fact that we've been dealing with a mass virus for you know 18 months now, kind of thing. It was topical even then, and I think it really hit with people. The themes struck really well, and we were able to tell a pretty interesting story with it.
Yeah, I mean that story's from, I think that released in like what, 2015.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean that was way before, current issues in the world. But and it's kind of funny because studies have shown that people who are more beautiful tend to be, get into better financial situations, more trusted, things like that. And it's funny to me that, to be considered more trusted, they had to go and, get this, virus,
Right.
do the sinful thing to
Right.
get, to be trusted. It's just it's kind of ironic. Um, so, without giving too much of beauty away, while I'm reading a lot of comics actually, because I just love visual media, I think to myself, this would be a great TV show. Was there ever, or would there ever be a beauty TV show?
I think there is an incredible possibility that that's going to happen. Yeah.
Awesome.
Um, uh, we are working on some stuff right now. I think that there's a thing that sometimes people like, kind of the caveat that they don't give you, the way that they don't explain it, is like they act a little coy. They're like, oh, maybe
Yeah, yeah.
kind of thing. But like, the reality of it is, I think that we all want to be cautious because things take longer than you expect, or things fall apart. And that's just part of the business of Hollywood. There have been projects that I was like, in one moment I had exactly the director attached to something, there was a star attached to it, the writer was perfect, the script was there, everything was locked in, and then I've had it fall apart. And I think that that's happened on projects before, and um, we are in a very exciting place with the beauty and what's coming up. And I, now that things are opening back up, it's really looking like we've got some exciting news coming very soon.
Awesome. Awesome. That makes me very happy. I in my opinion, it's the perfect kind of story. It's a cop drama. There's a little bit of conspiracy, governmental conspiracy. There is sex. There's death. There's everything in between. There's a little bit of sexual tension. It's everything. Um, one of my favorite books. I'm pretty sure I have the entire collection stashed away. Just because I'm one of those guys that buys a book by a cover. So when your artwork's on the front cover, I'm probably going to pick it up more than likely.
Thanks.
So that brings me to the next thing that I was introduced to of your creation, was a little further down the line. And that is, oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, I want to talk about beauty still. One of the covers that really drew me, again, I judge a book by its cover all the time, was the main cover A that was like a realistic illustration of like some kind of glamour magazine, but you can like see the cracks showing. I think I even have it in the picture reel here. I think it's issue number 8, where it's like the red cloud background, and she has a huge like crown on, and almost looks like a ghostly figure that you would see in like a Victorian, ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
Was it your intention to obviously make it so beautiful and so haunting at the same time, kind of like giving that illusion of, it's not exactly what it seems?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted it to feel like high fashion covers. I love, I've always, even as the artist in me has always loved looking at fashion magazines and cover design for magazines. They, whether it's you know Vogue or Vanity Fair or GQ or whatever the magazine is, they pick these statuesque individuals and get fantastic photographers doing beautiful work, and they bring them in, and and even there's all kinds of covers. You get ones that are a little cheesier, or you get this one that focuses on hair or whatever it is. But I wanted to do something that felt like fashion covers. And then I imagined that this was the exact moment that the person died badly, that they, like the people do in the story, they immolate, basically, they almost spontaneously combust. But what if it was that exact moment that they were in the perfect pose, and the photographer snapped that shot right as they turned into this living husk of a statue almost. And it's designed, and it's elevated. I don't know that I think that photograph maybe wouldn't necessarily happen when you're seeing somebody burst in flames in front of you, kind of thing. But I wanted to capture that feeling, and I think that ran through the series. That thing where it's like just this lovely moment in time, and I was able to capture that again and again. And that cover specifically, I love how grand some covers can get. I love how expansive and operatic the magazine covers can get. I just wanted to do something that felt big and grand and beautiful, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I never ever would have guessed that it was if it was the instance that they started to combust. That's really interesting. I find more of appreciation for that now too, because it's almost like they are at the peak of their game when they do finally die because of the beauty. So what better way to portray that than a model getting the front cover of some kind of big magazine? You know what I mean? Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the Realm. So the Realm was something a little different, and I've never been a fantasy guy, even though I do play like role-playing games and stuff like that. That's kind of how this whole thing started, was playing role-playing games. But I never really liked high fantasy. But you kind of shifted the high fantasy into almost a horror in a way that I wish, if Dungeons and Dragons did this, I would play Dungeons and Dragons. You know what I mean? So it took me to a modern day adventure, like I said, with D&D high fantasy, with the creatures, and you took like, when I was a kid and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, it's like you took my imagination and like threw it forward through time and then put it on a page, and that's exactly what I would have been imagining as I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. You know what I mean? Right. It's like the perfect modern apocalyptic Dungeons and Dragons story, So again, I got on here. Your characters are kick-ass adults fighting goblins, dragons, and all types of creatures. Right. So again, one of the things that pulled me right in was your name was on the cover, and the A and B cover for issue 1 kind of like they just stand out on a crowd full of brand new comics. There you are, right there. And you can tell once you start to get an appreciation for an artist, you can kind of pinpoint their style.
Right.
And you definitely have that kind of style that I can kind of like, oh yeah, I definitely got to pick this one up. I know who that is.
Right.
It's like listening to a guitarist and knowing that it's them before you even know the song.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So again, some of the same questions, like what was the creative process like on the Realm, where it's still that horror feel, but it's a completely different world?
I think that when you said that it was like a look into your brain at a very specific time, and and then fast forwarding and telling that kind of story. I was the kid sitting in my buddy's basement watching The Road Warrior over and over and over again. and playing D&D. You know, we had it was, I mean, it was very. I think there's a reason that that Stranger Things hit in the way it did with a lot of people, because I think a lot of us were those kids. You know,
Hmm.
like in the '80s, my friends and I would be at one of our buddies' houses, and he had great parents, and they would bring pizza down into this cave of a basement, and we would sit down there and watch post-apocalyptic movies and play Dungeons and Dragons and read comic books. There were stacks of comic books and Fangoria all around us and all these things. And the mixture of the way that kind of horror and D&D and post-apocalyptic fiction kind of worked in my head was like, oh, these are kind of all sort of the same thing. It's all the same feelings. And I think that one of the things that we run into sometimes in our storytelling is like it has to be just one thing. And it's like, well, that's not really like um you know one of my favorite fantasy authors was always Robert E. Howard.
Hmm.
He wrote Conan, he wrote Solomon Kane, and Conan was very much a fantasy story, but there was always this um, horror element, these old gods in these stories that kind of peeked into things, and it was because he was very, very influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. He wanted to bring a lot of that feel in, and so there were always things that really pushed into like Lovecraftian mythos in Conan, in those stories. And I voraciously read, when I got a little bit, like I started reading pretty young prose, but like when I started reading those, I kind of saw that, and later didn't, only until I was in I think I was pretty in high school when I found like Lovecraft stuff. But I started to connect these dots, and those were things that I wanted. I wanted my fantasy to have horror in it, and I wanted my fantasy to feel um, kind of like those weird post-apocalyptic movies and TV shows from when I was a kid. And I think one of the things, whether it's the beauty or the realm or the Red Mother, you kind of take the things that you want to see most, and sort of combine them in a way that it becomes your favorite things.
Yes, I completely agree, and it all clicks now that you say you being a kid playing Dungeons and Dragons, reading comics and watching Road Warrior, because I always thought like this is what it's like. Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Dungeons and Dragons, like you just throw them all in a blender and then you add this secretive like horror side to it again with like this evil ruler ruling over the land. And that's it's perfect description. That's why I love doing these interviews with the creators, because it just puts the icing right on the cake. So one of the things that I love about the realm, and when I got to meet you at Third Eye Comics, was that you were doing this thing. I don't know, it might have been like $25 or something, and you got this quote unquote secret variant. Now I looked all over for the secret variant. It's probably in storage. I know for a fact I still have it because I made it a point to never take the paper bag that it was wrapped in off.
I love
So
that.
I had you. I'm pretty sure in marker it just said secret variant,
Uh-huh.
and then you signed it, and then I put it in a bag and board and put it in a box, and I never touched it until the end of the time because I'm like, oh my god, this is one of those things. This could be just there could literally be nothing inside of here but blank pages. I'll never know, but who knows? This might send my daughter to college one day.
Right,
But
right.
I still to this day have no idea what that cover looks like.
I love
Is
that.
is there any? I kind of almost don't want you to answer this, but what does it look like?
I mean, we've ended up sort of using that image again because it was so vastly popular. And like what I love is that I love that there are people like you that absolutely never looked. And then there are, of course, speculators and things like that that immediately had to open it and put it online. You know, they wanted people to see it, you know, and
Yeah.
and my favorite thing about you saying that is like, I am so much like you that like, give me a cool mystery, give me like a secret, and I'll go with it forever. Like I want the game.
Yeah.
Like the reason that I made and this is gonna, you know, like I don't know, this may be a peek into the way that I think about things, but like um I love experiential fiction. I love the idea that it's not just it's not just a comic. You know, I want to try and provide an experience that can last for as long as you want it to. I want you to read a comic book and then find out that there is stuff that I talk about in that comic book that actually connects to other stories that I've told. The idea that like that I keep making this joke and it's everything becomes so like almost like a bad pun, but like I talk about like what's become the Hauniverse, you know, and it's this thing where it's like uh, the realm is connected to the Red Mother, is connected to Haunthology and stories that are in that, and there's certain things that are in the beauty that even connect. Like there's a couple characters that are in the beauty that are referenced in a couple other stories as background characters, and you realize that, well, like this person's last name is the same as this person's last name. Are they alternate reality versions of each other and stuff like that? And so I love building that mythos kind of thing, but then I love the idea that like I can also give you a a physical item in your real world. You know, I can give you a secret variant, right? A thing that like it becomes part of a game. You know, it becomes part of the larger thing where I don't just I don't want like I don't just want to sell you something. That's not really what I'm doing. I want you to join me on a journey. I want to tell a story that for a moment we can live together. We can walk into that and appreciate that thing and have fun with that thing. And if you want, you can dive deeper, and then you can realize that you know this cover that's an homage to this thing is a love letter to the experience. You know that, and I'm going to keep giving people little things like that. I'm going to keep doing things where it's like, you know, like the secret variant, like the effect for your audience. The rule for it was basically like, um, it was kind of like treating it almost like Fight Club, right? You don't talk about the secret variant.
Yeah.
You know, it's in a bag. I'm going to hand it to you, and you know, like I'm not asking somebody to necessarily sign their name in blood or something like that, but I'm saying, you know, don't share this, you know. And people are going to share it because that's their nature, and they need to do that, and I can't be mad about that. You know, like I wish people were all kind of a little bit more hush hush than some people were, but like you were there in that line, and the only way that you can get this cover is physically from me, you know. And you stood in that line, and we had an experience, and I got to meet you, you know, like when you were like, yeah, you know, I met you at Third Eye. It like that was such a fantastic experience, hanging out with everybody and being there, and you know, like having Twitter conversations. Oh, you know, like back and forth, like, oh, that's awesome, and getting to talk to people over time. I don't know, it builds something wonderful, and that's exciting for me. And so, yeah, I loved that cover, and I love that experience, and I love getting to go on that tour and meet you and everybody. And again, you said it earlier, but you said that Third Eye is one of the best shops on the East Coast. I would even wholeheartedly agree with that, and I would take it one small step further and say Third Eye is one of the best shops, period. I love that shop, and I love
Wow.
that crew. They're just the best.
I'm sure I'm going to clip that and I'm going to send it to Steve, and I'm sure he'll be very appreciative.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get to see you there again one day. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I
So
wonder. I'm sorry.
your
Go ahead.
that's okay. Your passion that you just expressed right there. I'm never going to open that secret variant now. Probably never going to sell it. I'll just have my wife bury me with it, and we'll just go from there. Because yeah, it almost makes it like it almost makes it, yeah, you're part of a secret club now, and I really like that, and yeah, I'm gonna cherish that now. So enough of your past works. Let's go into what we really, really, really want to talk about, and what you've referenced 100 times, and people are probably like, "What in the hell is he talking about when he says Haunthology?" So let's go ahead and talk about it, and I'm gonna ask you, what is Haunthology?
Um, Haunthology is um, a collection of short stories that really saved me during COVID. The long and short of it, the reality of it is that, like every single person listening to this, like you, we were all affected by the last year and a half, right? And um I had, like, 2019 had been a pretty tough year. We had some loss in the family. We had a couple things happen, uh, and I had decided that I needed to buckle down and really focus on getting some work done and figuring out what my next steps as a creative were. And so I started on it. I was like, I can see the path. I can see where this is going. I had 2020 was really going to be one of the busiest creative years for me. I was writing more. I was drawing on very specific things. Um, I was doing, for the first time in a long time, in addition to my creator-owned work, I was doing some freelance work. I was drawing books for I was drawing a book for Valiant. I was doing a lot of covers. Things really were going in a very specific direction. And then, like for everybody, like all of us, COVID happened and that shifted. I went from having I was doing like I did C2E2, and then I was going to do Emerald City Comic Con and then Planet Comic Con at my local show in Kansas City, back to back to back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to draw pages on the plane between these.
Mm.
I've got to, I'm going to be so busy. And we were at C2E2, and everybody's like, this COVID thing seems really real. Like we weren't shaking hands. We were being very cautious, washing our hands. Nobody, we didn't really understand the need for masks yet and stuff like that. But like we, we keep referring to C2E2. 2020 was the last comic show, right? That was the last comic book convention. And I know there were still some,
Hmm.
and then there's some that have happened since, but like effectively that was the show that kind of changed it all. That was where I saw every one of my friends. Where there was this moment where I was sitting there with Jerry Duggan at his table, and we were just talking about stuff back and forth, and I was like, what do you think? And the man's apparently a prophet on top of a damn good writer, but like he he's like, I don't think we're going to have comic conventions for a long, long time. And I was like, and it crushed me, because I was like, if like, what's this going to be like? So we use the term pencils down is what happened in comics. You know, we stopped production. We were asked from publishers basically saying, hey, we're going to have to stop production on these comics. Diamond shut down. Shops everywhere are unsure of the situation. They're trying their best. You know, we're all trying to figure out what to do and how to make it work, but like, we can't continue to produce during this. And, you know, at first I think that we said, you know, it was going to be 4 months, but then that was 6 months, and then that was 8 months. And, um, you know, and I went from having all this guaranteed work and knowing that my family was secure for a year financially, that I had lined up stuff and had goals in place, to having nothing. You know, I was sitting there, and you know, my wife and I were having a conversation about where we were. You know, like, I was just, I think I was lost, honestly. Just, I felt lost, and we were talking about stuff, and I was like, I don't know what to do, because when you lock, like, in comics, when you lock in, usually lock in a year at a time, kind of, on stuff, especially as artists. You know, I say, okay, I have this many slots to draw things, and then you break it down. You say, well, I'm doing 5 issues of this, which is going to take me 6.5 to 7 months to draw. I have this many slots for covers, so now I've got, you know, so that's about 8 months worth of work. So then I have, you know, another 4 months in there, so I can kind of build in this. So you sort of figure out like what that schedule's like, and suddenly there was just nothing on the schedule. But when that happens, I didn't have other things that I could immediately jump into, because I was looking at a year out. Like, there was stuff, you know, I was writing the Red Mother at the time. It was going incredibly well. Boom was very, very gracious, and actually was really the only company that I was working with at the time that was like, hey, keep producing. You know, you guys, we love this book. We love you. You know, my editorial staff and Bryce and Philip over at Boom were incredibly supportive of us during that time.
That's
So I
awesome.
was able to keep writing that, but like, that was the only thing that I was doing. But I couldn't necessarily start writing and drawing a new series of my own. And so, um, my wife looked, and she's like, just write and draw something, just something, anything that can give you a little bit of peace, right? And so I sat down, and like, there was this. It's funny because it's like, sometimes I think you just need permission to make things, right? Like, you just need somebody to tell you, look, dummy, you know, like, just do what you do. That's fine. And so, so we, you know, I went out to the studio, and I wrote out this 3-page short story. Um, and it's the one that's been posted on IGN. Um, um, and it's, you know, one of the previews that I've done. But like, that first short story was really an examination for me. It was me talking about need, and me talking about that, like, that needing to see people, needing to have time around friends, needing to have some kind of comfort in a terrifying time. And the twist, you know, on it is, it's a horror story. This is not. It's not about a couple having issues or whatever it is. It's about a month. You know, like, it's this Lovecraftian terrible thing, right? And but I realized, and in that moment, it's like, I worked on the 3 pages of that story. I worked on it for about 5 days, start to finish, completely lettered, the whole 9 yards. And I finished it, and I was like, oh, it was like a weight had been lifted off of me. So then I told another story, just a 1-page story. And then I was like, oh, I want to do this again. And I want to do it again. And I realized that each story was me talking about something that I was feeling during COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started talking to my friends about it, and I started showing them, and I was like, you know, um, like the second story was just a one-page story, and it's kind of a lyrical kind of rhyming, fun, like it's kind of a spooky little story about a creature in a graveyard. But for me, it was about loneliness, because I was, it was saying, watch out for this creature, but I was thinking of how sad and alone the creature was, and that maybe it was actually, it could be your doom. It would be the death of you, maybe, but it's just because it wanted friends, and then, like, so I told that story. And then the third story it's about a guy trapped in an elevator
Yeah.
with tentacled Lovecraftian creatures slithering about outside, and he's been trapped in this elevator, and he doesn't even quite remember how long he's been in there. And that one's about being trapped inside our houses. And but so they're all stories about the feelings that we all had during COVID, one way or another. But it's not a COVID book.
Mm-hmm.
There's not masks. I don't talk about COVID. I mean, I talk about things being wrong, and a lot of the stories are very apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic feeling. There's definitely monsters. There's definitely things out there. A lot of the characters are talking about since things were weird or whatever it was. But those are all always, the way I referenced it was like, these are monsters or aliens or creatures that are out there. And I was able to talk about those things that were really bothering me and upsetting me. But I realized that I was also talking about things that we were all feeling. So everybody that read those was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this, and I identify with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the
I
long
mean,
version.
the two stories that are my personal favorites of what you sent me and that stand out from what you just said of an allegory for COVID, essentially, it would be The Day After Monday, and my favorite one, and I laughed at the end of it, but I was like, I could definitely see this. I won't say what animal this is, but this animal thinking this way, and that was I Will Do Dark Things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I always thought about that when I saw my pet,
Hmm.
and I'm like, yeah, I hope that you like me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's that. And I think that's one of the things about the series as it progressed, and for your audience, like, I've worked on this series for well over a year now. So like, it's been a year of my life. There are 24 stories, and honestly, this is volume one. There's 24 stories, and there's more stories that I'm even working on right now that are going to be in volume two, and I've got a whole thing planned for volume two. But they are spooky stories and creepy stories and scary stories about monsters and post-apocalyptic vistas and crazy things. But they're also, like I Will Do Dark Things, like, it's been a crap year, man. Like, it's been a terrible year plus. But if you can't also, like, laugh a little bit and, like, look at things and say there is humor in some of this. There is something that is a little silly or whimsical, if we can't actually uh see some kind of bright side and comment on the things that are weird or fun or funny. I did there's a story in it called The Private, which is one of my
Yeah,
favorites, because it's literally the idea about a guy finding a functioning toilet in a post-apocalyptic world, and like what that how life-saving in some ways, or
yeah,
comforting, that would be. If there was one toilet that for some reason still flushed, it would be a godsend. Like it would be the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
thing out there. And like, but I was able to do these stories, and like, I mean, that's very much a story about comfort, right?
mm-hmm.
Story about without, because there's a line in it where he's basically like, and there's a closet full of toilet paper in this building that he, in a time when I was writing this, and you literally could not find toilet paper
Yeah,
out there, for a while. Yeah.
yeah. It's so funny. So you're launching this on Kickstarter.
Right.
Um, is this your first Kickstarter campaign?
This is not. This is actually technically my third. I did a project called Bad Karma a few years ago with B. Claymore, Seth Peck, and Alex Grecian, friends of mine. We wrote all the stories for this thing. It was a big hardcover graphic novel. It was kind of an anthology in its own way too. It was an interesting experiment that we did. We brought in tons of other artists. Phil Hester did some stuff. Andrew McLean was part of it. Chris Mitten did stories. We did that. That was our first Kickstarter, and it's been maybe 10 years ago. Surely not. Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe 10 years ago.
Wow.
At least 7. And then I did a book with my 2 sons where I drew a dinosaur every week. It was a project called Dino Day. It was literally an art book with dinosaur drawings, but it was a special project that I wanted to do with them. Part of what I've done in my career is I've always been so busy working at DC or at Image or something, or Top Cow for a long time, where you always have so much work that you have to focus on that you can't always take on extra projects, and I'm not a huge fan of the term vanity project, but like that's kind of what this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But during COVID, for as silly as it may sound, I was alone in a room making these things. And the reality of it was, over the past year and a half, the relationship with my fans, with my supporters, with all of you, like Haunthology, saved me. I think that the personal relationship that I was able to make with fans and say, hey, like, I've got these stories and I'm putting them on my Patreon. If you want to join me on that, every couple of weeks I'm going to put out a new story. You can see it. You can read it. That connection was the most important thing to me. That thing, and it's like, and I think that in all media, there's, we talk about, like, do the people making things even care about their fans? Is fandom toxic? Blah, 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 all these things, right? But like the reality of it is in this past year, when it was tough on all of us, I was able to talk to people that love my work on Twitter. I was able to have conversations with people. I was able to talk with people via my Patreon, people that hopped on Instagram and got joy from, watching me ink stuff and all these things. That was a real lifesaver for me. So building this project, because it was me and the fans from the beginning, I felt like it kind of had to be a Kickstarter. I think it had to be a thing that was not really about a middleman anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I still want to, and I want to be very, very cautious because I think that one of the things about Kickstarter that always sort of does bother me a little bit is the idea that, like, I'm not sidestepping shops. That's not my goal. I love retailers. I love the support. Because the other reality is, like, so many of my fans and so many of my supporters have been shop owners, have been the
Hmm.
people ordering these books, and I love them. Taking it back to Third Eye or Elite Comics in Kansas City, or the like Star Clipper or Hurley's Heroes. There are the fantasy shop in St. Louis is another fantastic one that is just constantly supportive. Um, but these shops, they support you time and time and time again. And I so I'm trying to make sure also that when I do this Kickstarter, I actually have packages that involve that are available for shops, and because I don't want to exclude them, and I don't want to ever have it sound like doing this I'm trying to sidestep them. It's just more, I want it was a year where there was situationally everything shifted, and I wanted to make sure that I could make a very specific thing in a very specific way and get it out to the people that have shown me massive amounts of love and support during this.
Yeah, for sure. I can appreciate that. And I'm sure that the retailers that appreciate you appreciate that as well, because everybody has had to shift the way that they do business to continue to stay open. And then that goes for creators as well. Like I said before the interview, if you're not creating, you're not able to support your family. So it totally makes sense. And I am very much a physical media person, and any kind of creator that is creating any kind of art, whatever that is, I back it 100%. So when I saw that you were doing a Kickstarter, I immediately wanted to back that, because obviously looking through your Twitter, you have a family, you have kids, that the support needs to be there. Just like, if I was an artistic person of any kind, and that's how I fed my family, I would hope for some kind of support as well, especially from the people who, buy my whatever it is that I would be selling, So when does it launch on Kickstarter?
So I actually, whenever I walked down, out to the studio to get ready to head over here for this, um, I have a whiteboard, and it's like, and I realized that I've been doing this countdown on the whiteboard. It was like 14 days, 10 days, and I hadn't updated it in a couple of days, and I was like, oh, and it really, like, I had this sinking feeling. It launches July 6th,
Okay.
so it is coming right up. We are just a few days out from the launch. I am incredibly excited about it. I was telling Lori, earlier, I was just like, oh, so I guess, we're just over a week away from this launch. So I guess I'm not sleeping anymore. Like, I have dreams about the launch and all this stuff. And every day we're getting in like previews of the items, right? So like I got samples of the shirts in, that we're printing, and we've got a fantastic local printer that puts up with my picky ass. Like, okay, like, you like really soft shirts, and they have to be a very specific quality, and they have to be really, really good. Like, so, we got the shirt samples in, and then I'm hearing back from friends that, I sent the preview PDF. I sent you one, and they're talking about it, and I'm moving into the real, 'cause we're gonna have to push pretty hard. That's part of the thing about Kickstarter, is that you're always like, I don't want to, I don't want to bug people, but at the same time, how many times do people say, like, dude, didn't even know this was coming out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very interesting and exciting time, but July 6th is going to be here very, very soon, and I've got to roll with it.
I think that based off of what I looked at last night when I was trying to snipe some pictures from the Kickstarter, which I couldn't do because it hasn't launched yet.
Right.
But I think I saw 400 people have it saved as like to notify them on launch. So that's amazing.
Yeah. It's crazy. It really, I mean, like, honestly, the support for this just pre-launch, just people following it, just the number of friends and fans that are messaging me, that are responding to all of the me being so giddy about getting, like the final updated cover in, or the t-shirts in, or the preview of what this super special secret coin that we're making for this thing.
You can't tell me that, man. Come on, you can't tell me that. I already bought the secret variant, and I got to buy the secret coin.
It's yeah. This is again. This is the experiential stuff, right? This is the thing. These are the things. And I think it's interesting because it's like this stuff is aimed at you specifically. You are the audience that gets this thing. It's like, you get excited about a book, but then you also want to, like it's the little things that we can do that, like it's like it is part of, it's like being in a secret club,
Yeah.
And I'm just excited about that. It makes me happy.
Yeah. So like, so you have Volume 1, essentially, Haunthology, complete.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ready to go. I really love the black and white inside, because I've seen your work in color and it's beautiful, but there's something about black and white that I just feel is more detailed than a color illustration.
It's where my heart is. I have been so fortunate in my career to work with the colorists that I have. Nick Filardi we worked together on The Realm. I worked with John Rausch and Nick Filardi, and then we brought in Na-Young Kim. We've had opportunities to work with really fantastic colorists throughout this, but I started out in black and white. My work in high school was always really intricate pen and ink work.
Mm-hmm.
In college, I was obsessed with doing that. I was, I always love the stark contrast of black and white. My first comics work was in black and white. There was this idea that stuff had to be in color for people to want it for a long time. And then this really obscure book, I don't know if you heard of it, but it's called The Walking Dead, came out. It was in black and white. And it's like, there are no rules for this thing. And if you do it because it's how it's supposed to be, if you do it because that's what you're wanting to do, because I think there was this idea that for a long time it was cheap, it was just cheaper to do black and white, like it was an economic decision. We couldn't afford to do colors, so we did black and white. And there's a reality to that. Sure, some people do it that way, but like, I had to decide with Haunthology, these 24 stories that I'm doing, what did I want them to do? How did I want them to be? How did I want them to look? And the reality was, even I could have colored them, because I did everything. I wrote them, I drew them, I lettered them. I could have gone in and colored them. I actually kind of even like doing that, like very, very simple, iconic colors. But for me, I wanted to tell a story that simply existed in black and white, so you could see all of that detail. You could see, the brush or the ink strokes, the little variations of the little bit of gray that's there sometimes, and things like that. Because I like that. I don't need something to be super glossy and super perfect. I love and loved, those black and white comics from when I was a kid, and I wanted to replicate that.
Yeah. I mean, the cover itself is a perfect self-portrait of yourself. I mean, the tentacle beard, the wings for ears, the glasses, the hat. I mean, if I was to pause it right now it would just be like you're looking in a mirror on the screen.
Well, it was really funny. So I've been thinking for years about like a lot of artists have like cool icons or logos or various things that they use, and so I was like, oh, I need one. I need to figure out like what mine is, my little symbol or whatever that is. And so I actually asked a few friends, people that I trust, I'm like, what four things do you think of about me and about my artwork that is iconic enough that should be part of this thing? And once every single one of these delightful people stopped making fun of me mercilessly for a while, they hit on, they were like, oh, like hats, always hats, definitely your beard, that's become, I've had a beard now since I was 5 or 6. But you have a beard, you have the hats, and then work wise, like kind of weird fiction stuff, right? Like Lovecraftian Cthulhu, tentacles, that sort of thing, and then like kind of spooky kind of skulls and stuff like that, horror themed things, and I sat down and did these kind of doodles, and then I did this doodle that was, it was actually just super fast. I was like, oh, what about this, and it looked like crap, but the idea was down, and then I sat there and refined it. I drew it over and over again and kind of got it where I wanted it, and then I was fortunate enough to have colorist friends in the industry that were like, oh, that's cool, I'd like to color that. And then it became a thing where Brennan Wagner was the first that colored it, and that's what we used for the cover. But he just nailed the color, red, kind of the red color on it, and just the texture and everything, the lighting that he did was just so perfect. But Brennan did one, Brett Weldley did one, Nick Filardi did one, Dave McCaig did one, and then and not to diminish any of the others at all, but Dave Stewart came in and did the last one, and I admired him so much from Hellboy and everything that the man's colored forever. And so I get these 5 powerhouse colorists, these artists that are brilliant coming in and doing these things, and I'm just like, okay, I won. I love these things. So, yeah. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to make stickers of every single one of these because they're so cool.
Yeah, the stickers and stuff like that. I saw the cool shirts and the stickers and stuff. Is that going to be on? Are you going to sell those separately, or will that be roped in with the tier backer packages?
Yeah, there's so one of the things that I really wanted to do was make things as accessible to people, because I do think that I've backed Kicks, and I checked the other day and I was like, oh, I've backed well over 100 Kickstarters at this point. Like I think I'm due for that super backer sticker pretty soon. Yeah. But I backed Kickstarters where it's like, I like the book and I like the t-shirt, but I can't get, you have to get this, and this, and it gets really, and I still do it because I want the things and I want to support people, but I wanted to make it as easy on people as possible. So basically what I did for this was I have a tier that's just the book. And then I have a tier that is like the book and the t-shirt. And I have a book and the enamel pin. And I have that. So there's different ones with different options. But then Kickstarter got really smart, and did this thing where they allow add-ons. So you can kind of customize it now to where, say that you want to get the book and t-shirt tier, but then you're like, oh, wait a minute, this other cool t-shirt color option unlocked. I'm going to need another t-shirt. Well, you can add another t-shirt in the add-ons, or you can add another enamel pin, or you can even add another copy of the book if you're like, hey, I want 2 copies of the book. So it's a really great way that they've done this now, where it makes it very customizable. I tried to make options that are like, this is the tier, but I also wanted to do things where you could kind of build it and make it whatever you wanted.
Yeah, that's cool. That's how I like to back when I'm backing on Kickstarter too. Is I don't mind adding an add-on, as long as I don't have to buy the same product twice to get that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: do you have a tier where you can get personalized artwork?
So kind of.
Okay.
So I want to be very, and I think transparency is very important. And so as we were building towards this, I have a few commissions that I've been trying to finish lately anyway, and some things that I've been trying to clear off my plate. And I have a lot of anxiety when I owe people things, so I always worry.
Same.
Like I love my supporters and love my fans, and I never do anything lightly. So sometimes, like there's a piece that I actually feel horrible about because I forgot about it and it didn't end up on a list and it was too long and I felt terrible and owed it. And so I was crushing anxiety whenever it came around to it. But like, I'm always trying to make sure that I have everything off my list, and I want to treat people well. Right now, with the scale of this project on its own, and what that thing where you can't always talk about the things you've got coming up, what the next year looks like for me, it would be irresponsible. I know that people want original artwork. I think the idea that they can get, a really cool 11x17 commission or whatever it is. I know people want that, and I actually want to be able to draw stuff for people. I love that personalized experience, but it would be irresponsible for me to do that right now on this. The 2 things that I've done that I, and I know commissioned art is different than original art, but the 2 things that I've done is I have a thing called a Haun crate that I do, and I have this out there. I do it about once or twice a year, and basically what it is you get like a loot crate. It's like basically like a loot crate, right? You get a box with everything that I've done in that season. So like, every print book I've put out, you get an original piece of art, like a page.
Nice.
And it's a random page, so it's like it might be from Constantine or from Batwoman or from,
oh wow,
whatever it is. And it's a randomized thing, so you just get a page of artwork. But then I do in that I have, and I've been doing these Pop 21, this project where I do these little 5x5.5 pop culture pieces. So like every Tuesday and Thursday, like just this last week, I did Mulder and Scully from the X-Files, right?
I saw that on your Twitter.
Yeah. So if you get a Haun crate, the Haunthology Haun crate level, and they're expensive because it's a big stack of books. It's the book itself. It's original artwork from like a random page and all this stuff. But it's very worth it if you break down the value. If you're a super fan of mine, getting an original page of artwork, getting the Haunthology book, getting the T-shirt and the pin and all this stuff in one thing, I will also do one of my Pop 21 size pieces, the 5x5.5 of the pop culture character of your choice.
Oh, cool.
So and like they're pretty limited. I'm not doing a ton of them. But that's an event that is in a way that you can get, and again, they're small and kind of simple. They're not elaborate grand, it's like, please do me the solid and on a piece like this, don't be like, hey, can you draw the Avengers, kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But like that, so that's there. And the other option that I've got is, and you've seen all the artwork, you have the advantage of it, but all of the original pages of artwork from Haunthology are available in this. So say that someone was like, hey, I you know, like I loved I Will Do Dark Things, or I loved The Private, or whatever it is. They can come in and there's a tier that says, you can buy this for $300. You get the 2 pages from that and the book, but you get it all together. And I've got such an amazing, supportive, original art audience out there. And I love that, and I love them, and it's been fantastic. But so it's a way that you can get original art, and small,
Yeah.
but,
I don't have any original art from any creators, but if I can afford it, I'm going to ask you for that last panel page from I Will Do Dark Things, because I think that is awesome. That sums up when I had that animal, that sums up the relationship that it was. It was you feed me and you get to wake up in the morning.
right. It was funny because I do think about that idea that, like, our pets love us and they put up with us to a degree, and like,
Yeah.
my brother and his partner are animal lovers beyond belief. They have now collected a world. It's basically a zoo at their house,
Wow.
and I always joke, I'm like, I hope that at some point the two of you don't, like, die at the same time or something like that, because these animals will feast on you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they will definitely eat you. And so I think about that a lot. Just yeah, these animals that we love so much, that take naps on our stomachs while we're watching TV, and
Yeah.
kind of cuddle up and sleep at the foot of your bed and all these things. Like, yeah, they will definitely consume you
Yeah.
at this opportunity.
They are still animals.
Yeah,
So before we kind of wrap up here, obviously, I am the face of Rollers of Relay, but there's a bunch of us. It's a big Discord, and on behalf of them, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do, everything that you create, being fully transparent on the state of the last year for you. We completely and 100% back artists of all kinds. Doesn't matter what the art is. So I just want to say thank you for that. And if you could, please share with us how we can help support you on your journey through creation.
I mean, well, thanks so much. I mean, that the reality of this is that these relationships, like I said earlier, are what keep me going. I appreciate that, and just knowing that every time that you make something, and you realize that you're not alone in that. Every time that you realize that the things you're feeling or thinking, that there's people out there that identify with that connect to it, that get something from that. It means the world to me. I mean, look, I am excited and scared about the Haunthology thing, and I think that the biggest thing, if you I from a completely greedy standpoint, I would love to have to make our goal day one, if we can make it happen. Please check it out. Join me day one. I'm gonna do a little Facebook Live launch party thing where I'm just gonna, like, do a countdown, and you get to see me hit the button, and I'll answer questions and do all of that. We are offering, just as a bonus, we're doing enamel pins for this. My studio mate, Amber Stone, she's a fantastic enamel pin designer, and she helped me come in and do it's the icon, these enamel pins.
Mm-hmm.
But if you back on day one, you back Haunthology on day one with any physical rewards, that's a book or a book and a pen or whatever it is, I'm doing a Kickstarter exclusive black on black version of my icon pin, and that's a freebie. That's the if you back in the first day, you get a pin, and that's and that's how that's pretty much the only way anybody's going to be able to get it is or I think I'm going to have it like you can buy it as an add-on, but if you want it for free, get it, just come on the first day and I'll gladly give you one. So yeah, if we can do that, and then there's just the free stuff. I'm a big believer in the power of Instagram and just putting art and life out there for everybody to see. I post daily on Instagram, and it's desk shots. It's just what I'm drawing that day. It's Pop 21 stuff, which is just me drawing pop culture characters or horror characters. For Halloween, for October this last year, I did 31 days of Halloween, where I literally drew 2, sometimes 3 horror movie characters, in a day.
Wow.
So I'm always putting stuff on Instagram. You can see, go over to my reels and literally see me doing time-lapse videos of inking all these characters and doing stuff. That's Jer Haun, Jerhaun. You follow me on Twitter already, but your audience can follow me on Twitter. It's just, again, Jer Haun. I'm on Facebook. Those are really the 3 main things that I use. I'm revamping my website, jeremyhaun.com, but you can go on there if you're interested in. I have an active store. I always have a store open. That's where you can get everything from the zines, the Haunthology zines that we mentioned earlier. You can get some prints. You can get some like kind of exclusive little, like the 31 Days of Halloween. I printed it as a book. You get a book there.
Oh, cool.
You can get it. Just I'm a big fan of stuff. I like experiential things. I want I just did a thing because of the difficulty of shipping. I don't think I'm going to have. I think I'm going to do Haunthology mug, like ceramic coffee mugs, and etched old-fashioned glasses. But I don't think I'm going to do them as part of the Kickstarter, just because, to be perfectly honest with you, the idea of having to ship glass with original artwork or glass with a book terrifies me beyond belief.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just have those on my shop. But you can go and just jeremyhaun.com, and you can go to the store. It's a big cartel store, and just check that out. And I have a Patreon as well. And my Patreon, you can join it. You can actually see, like, if you're curious about the Haunthology project, for $5 a month, you can join the Patreon, and you just get the stories as they come out. So all of the stories from Haunthology, you can go and you can check out on there. And there's different tiers and stuff like that. But there's the $5 level is the Haunthology level. So you can go and you kind of see everything. You can see, you can see those stories, and I think that we're enough alike that, like, we're the dudes that need that physical book in our hand, right?
100%. Yep.
Yeah, and like I was hesitant at first to do something where it was like available digitally or available first digitally, but then the ability to put that out there and interact with an audience was really important for me. And my patrons on that group are there's around 40 of us on there, and it's just a close-knit group of people that talk and have a good time. They I'll post something, and they'll always have pretty witty, fun observations about it. And we talk a little bit about, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I put up there, like, time-lapse videos, but then I'll do audio commentary. So you can watch me drawing a page or a piece, but then I kind of just talk about my thoughts on the piece itself or the story that I'm doing and stuff like that. So it's just you know, a lot of fun bonus stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. There's
That's
all
okay.
sorts of ways that you can check out what I do. Uh, I just, you know, the more time that goes by, the more I seek connection. And, you know, it's like I miss seeing you all at signings and at conventions and uh, being, you know, conventions and signings are really special anyway because whether you're, you know, and you know, I know that we kind of societally have this joke right now about being introverts or extroverts or some combination of the two, but the reality is, as creatives, we work long hours in dark rooms, you know, ourselves. These are people of all the genders doing things alone for the most part, and the more that we can actually get out to shows and just see another human being, you know, like have like you know, please everybody, when you get back to shows, if there's a creator that you love and you see them at a show, just tell them what, you know, tell them I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be going up and you know, I don't know if we're going to get back to giving hugs, but I've got a lot of hugs on deck for people. You know, it means the world to us to be able to talk about this stuff and share this stuff and see that you appreciate this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what. I promise you this: if I see you at Baltimore Comic Con, if you get there, I'll give you a hug.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for going so in depth on everything. I really look forward to the launch of the Kickstarter. I know that you do too. I'll make sure to link everywhere that you can find Jeremy: Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Definitely the Kickstarter. Any way that you want to find him, you can find him. He'll talk to you. He's not, you know, he's a real person, as you can tell. He'll talk to you. He's very personable. Jeremy, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Had a great time.